don't fucking pitch. Storytelling is extremely powerful in Web3. Don't just build a product, really build a brand. That's the most important part. You need a story.
Web3 is one of those unique industries where selling your product is not as direct as, hey, would you like my stuff? It's, there's a lot more relationship to it. There's a lot more, I guess, trust and word of mouth recommendation. Like, I trust you, we work together, and then I'm going to ask one of your friends, like, do you know this brand? Have you worked with them before? What's your take on that? Do you feel Web3 is as different from, say, Web2, or?
100 million%, Charles, because, I think Web3, generally speaking, is a bit of a rebellious industry, right? And they really dislike corporate ways. The less corporate you are, probably the best it is, unless you work for maybe, let's say, Circle or Coinbase, where, some of those companies are a lot more corporate and more in between banks and Web3, right? They're not either on the Web3 degen side or the full-on TradFi side. But I agree with you 100%, Charles. I think what I've said to many, many projects who are trying to learn how to pitch is don't fucking pitch. Because there are three ways to sell, either a product, raise funds, sell a dream. And that is the number one and the most common from the best sales practitioners is questioning, right?
Yeah.
Rather than selling, it's questioning. So the very crafty ones, and I can show you guys a few of the systems that I've seen being executed by many, many top salesmen and that have been referenced in many books. So this questioning formatting is number one. Then the second part is storytelling. Storytelling is extremely powerful in Web3 because it's such an elegant and soft way of selling something and getting people just curious or interested in what you're doing. The third way is pitching. And the only format where people should pitch is when you're in a group format and you cannot customize the dialogue. You're not having a dialogue, you're having a monologue in front of a certain amount of people. Those are the only instances where you should pitch, or else you should never pitch because it never works. And sorry for such a dirty analogy, but it's like going up to a girl and saying, hey, do you want to have sex? It's that direct, right? People don't like it. It's like, dude, I don't even know you. Why are you trying to sell me something or trying to get something from me so quickly? So yeah, I like those three formats: good questioning, storytelling. And then also there's one key component, guys, is to have multiple sales pitches depending on the people. So like a TradFi guy relative to a Web3 degen is a very different way of choosing your words. And then maybe a newbie who doesn't know anything versus someone who's extremely, extremely knowledgeable is also completely different. So not having a one-way fits all, but having multiple approaches is a key point here on top of the three basic pillars of selling.
Yeah, that choosing your audience piece, that is always, I always find it interesting going to conferences. And I think I had a discussion with Charlie last week about this because we were at NFC Lisbon, really lovely conference. And I liked it. I generally like conferences. The thing I dislike about it is that everybody tries to sell really heavily, and we're sitting on the tech side of things. So it's always like, oh, what do you do? Oh, you need tech services? Like that's generally the conversation I have with agencies. I'm like, no. Well, first off, you didn't ask what I do, but no, I don't need tech services. It's like choosing your audience, and to your point, like, questioning. I think that's where it starts, right? Like, and sometimes it means like we often do indirect sales, right? When you talk to people, definitely in Web3 conferences, and it doesn't matter if it's a builder conference or like, a token, which is, I think, more business related. Sometimes referring people to the right, or making introductions to the right people. And then often they come back later and they're like, oh, hey, you were doing tech services, right? It's like, yeah, we spoke about it 3 months ago. Yeah, I really remembered you because you put me in touch with that guy and I got my this piece sorted because at that moment in time, they needed legal and they needed nothing else, right? So you're starting pitching to somebody that doesn't need tech or marketing. It gets off a bad impression. Well, if you do the other way around, where you say, like, hey, look, we know the right people. I can make an intro for you. The intro goes well. There's a good chance they're coming back like, hey, thanks for that intro. And by the way, we do need that crazy smart contract for a crazy project that, we're going to change the space with. Okay, cool. Let's talk. But you don't start with questioning, it gets shoved through your throat, and you're like, yeah, but I don't really care about what you do, or like, because like, you don't understand what the audience is.
And I think you mentioned something really important, Thomas, is if you really want to pitch, at least ask what they do first, right? Because that's an
Yes.
elegant way. Because once you've given them the chance to speak, then they'll feel obliged to reciprocate. Sorry, I can't even pronounce that properly, but they'll feel obliged to do so, right?
Yep.
So that's, at least it's a little more elegant, right, in the way of doing it, because you let them go first.
I was just going to say, I liked your comment, Alex. Like, when some businesses are more corporate. It's part of what we do. Aspect is that we are corporate. Our goal is to be that, like, essentially tech people defense against like big corporates trying to rug pull them on contracts and or looking at their economies. Like that's why I'm wandering around these conferences in a shirt, right? And it is that kind of, you get with the side eye. It's like, why are you at this private event where everyone's in a t-shirt and you're wearing a shirt and like a sports coat? What's your fucking problem? Why are you at my party? And then they kind of wander over and they're like, oh, so you've been in this space since 2016, 17, and you have launched some ICOs and you have launched a unicorn business and you've done all of this. And 4 of my friends who are also in the room, invited you here. Oh, you are one of us, but you just perform that function. I'm like, yeah. The reason why we wear the shirts is so you don't fucking have to. Right?
And by the way, Charles, when I look at you now, you do look more like someone who would be with Kraken and Coinbase rather than an Aave or 1inch or something.
Yeah. You're still fighting with 1inch, by the way.
we essentially provide. I mean, regardless of how degen you want to be, once you get into that Series A room discussion, the quality of the deal that you're going to get out depends on the quality of the people on your side of the table.
Yeah.
And you can feel that. And in essence, that's we prime businesses to get there and then ensure that steering of the ship, as you put it, that vision, that monetary basis, that P&L, that balance sheet knowledge is there for these businesses.
Yeah. And
so we almost couldn't do that without wearing the shirt,
100%. And I think, like what we talked about earlier about having like multiple pitches, know your audience, like Thomas, you mentioned as well. Like, so for example, for me, right, if I meet someone who is a complete beginner in crypto and they ask me, what do you guys do at Swissborg? I will just say, listen, we've created an app, which is like the sky scanner of buying your crypto or earning interest in an easy way and at best prices, right? So I'll use the sky scanner analogy where we get you best price for buying, selling, and earning interest on crypto. If I talk to a techie guy, I will say we're a meta exchange layer connecting to 5 centralized order books and 4 Solana dexes to get you best liquidity, minimum slippage and spread, and best rates. So that's a different pitch. And then if I talk to someone from TradFi, I'll say, hey, Charles, what we're building right now is essentially NASDAQ 2.0, where we're the central point where all liquidity will go that will connect the FX world, the SEX centralized exchange world, and the DEX's decentralized exchange. So you see already, just for Swissborg, I already at least, and I have millions of other examples of how I would refine what Swissborg is depending on the audience that we know. And as you said, Thomas, even if there's no business now, as long as they understand and know what you do, something may come up later.
I have one example. It made me laugh so pretty hard. Last week, we onboarded our COO. She is non-crypto, and she went to the first conference, and she's like, "Yeah, how should I present Intersect?" I'm like, in the way that you feel most comfortable with. And she came up with and to non-tech people, she's like, "Yeah, we're a Tinder for the IT industry." Like, and funnily enough, for a lot of people, they were like, "Oh, okay, so you connect like." Your clients with, I was like, wow, that you explained it. She explained it better to non-crypto people than I ever did. I was like, wow, that's really impressive. But it's and you say that to a tech guy, he's like, okay, that's weird, right? But you say that to a marketing guy that hasn't any idea what a blockchain consultancy means, and a trust layer between clients and all this kind of stuff. You need to be very concise, and I found that a very good opener to non-tech people. And actually, I'm using it now with my friends as well. They're like, "Thomas, what are you doing?" I was like, We're Tinder for IT. Oh, that's great. Yeah, and then specifically blockchain. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, wow.
100%, and that's so cool. I mean, Tinder for IT. I mean, that's that. I think anyone would understand that, right?
Yeah,
Like a really cool example.
yeah, yeah. We offer very transactional. Oh no, that's not true. We actually offer very deep. That's the difference. We're probably more like a Bumble, or like we offer like in-depth partnerships and a partnership for life.
She's got to swipe right first.
In a sense, yes. I wanted to touch on one more thing, and I know we don't have that much time, but I wanted to just ask you one question, because this is something that I've seen our clients struggle with, and generally the industry struggle with when it comes to building customer loyalty. And it's easy, I think, if you're doing something for crypto by crypto, but how do you create that on a larger scale? Let's say your Web2 users, like it's something that is seemingly really hard to crack for projects in this particular space.
100%. So I think the biggest mistake that most startups make in Web3 is that they don't have a story. They're trying to create a company kind of like Apple, but they don't realize that Apple really, really crafted a powerful brand, on how people wanted to be different from Windows, because Windows is garbage. So it's a lot of hard work on the storytelling, on the narrative, on the brand. And I think it's more than that, actually. If you really want people to stick with you, you have multiple pillars that you need to sell. Number one, you need to have some sort of public figure, right? So the people within the company, there's that story, right? So for example, Charles Hoskinson, he's a A+ for Cardano, right? He is a real guru. Or Steve Jobs was a real guru, right? So already, if you can tick the people pillar, and it doesn't need to be the entire team. It could be 1, 2, 3 polarizing figures, right? Like Elon. And then the second one is the story of the mission, right? Where the company's headed. And the vision and the mission, the company is another story that you need to sell. It's a second narrative. And then the third story is the technology or the token, if you have a token, right? But the technology and the token, once again, what's the story, the compelling story that you have? And I think if you can have stories for all of these pillars, then you will create extreme loyalty. Why do people love Tesla? Because Elon is fucking awesome. Because his cars are very cool. So why? I mean, and the vision he has. Oh my God, the vision. He wants to build, spacecrafts. He wants to send us to the moon, right? So all of the pillars, there's a story for every single pillar. I mean, he created a car that farts, right? Have you guys seen the Tesla that farts?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. My brother he showed me that feature the other day, guys. We were in Lausanne, which, by the way, Swiss people in Lausanne, they're quite calm and quiet and introverted. And there was a teenage couple crossing the street holding each other's hands. And he said, "Alex, do you want to laugh?" And he looked at me with those big perverted eyes. And I'm like, "What are you going to do?" And this cute little couple, which probably had their first kiss last week, he pushes one button, and there's a massive fart sound that comes from the front of his Tesla car. And the guy just looked up and looked at the girl, wondering if it was him or her who farted. And they turned around, and my brother was like waving, and they just cracked up. They were crying and crying of laughter. But I mean, that's crazy. These are, once again, it's, how can you imagine a guy in a board meeting saying, "Okay, guys, I have a revolutionary feature. What is it? We're going to have a car that farts." Like, do you know what I mean? That's a story in itself, right?
Mm.
But it also needs to fit, because if a Volkswagen would do that, or a BMW, it would look bad, right? Because that's not the audience. Like, but if you do it, if a Tesla owner does it, they're like, "Oh hell yeah, this is fucking cool." Like it's also know your audience in a sense, I guess, a little bit when it comes to customer loyalty. Yeah,
but it's like a Unilad article.
yeah.
BMW farts. All hell breaks loose.
So, but I think that's the conclusion, right? For all the techies and devs going out there, don't just build a product, really build a brand. That's the most important part. You need a story. If you don't have a story, what's going to happen is just like we see with all of these airdrops that have, over 1 million, sometimes DAUs, daily active users. And as soon as the airdrop is gone, they have less than 100K. 90% of their users disappear overnight. And that's the difference with Swissborg. We have a story. We love the community. We're constantly organizing events. We give our time and availability to them, and that works, right? Our stickiness, by the way, is one of the we have one of the most sticky apps in the world. We look at the stats. Out of 800,000 KYC users, we have 300,000 monthly active users. So that's like 30 to 40% monthly active users, which there's no company in crypto like Coinbase. When you look at the recent financial statements, 10%. Crypto.com is even lower. It's maybe around the 5%, even 3%. So the stickiness comes from a story, I guess, and really spending time with the community rather than the corporate side. So that's just my personal take.